So we're going to take turns playing and, you know, do a bit of a playthrough and talk you through the levels, essentially. Has anyone seen it yet before? Yeah, cool. Okay, perfect. Nice one. Sweet.
So, intro.
I'll let you read it.
So the very first scene, this is based on Eugene Street, where I used to live, in a very mouldy house. And we meet Rory. So this was, we had to, yeah, I don't need to explain that, but So the volume is really turned down, but there's sort of sounds of Dublin in the background. So we're trying to condense a lot of information into these...
and make it as simple as possible that the player doesn't lose concentration.
It was quite a long process to... So, yeah, the first thing that we did was interview people. When we started making the game, started designing the game, we said, who are the people who know about housing in Ireland? Who are the people who know about, you know, who are working on these problems?
Exactly.
So the first thing really that we did was started interviewing people. So all the interviews, all the people that you meet in the game, like Rory, like Ian Lynch, Avril Caroon, so we interviewed all of them and condensed all of these interviews down into very brief conversations. It was a lot of work.
And we also kind of looked at outside material as well. So in Rory's case, his books Housing Shock and Gaffs heavily influenced this level in particular.
So this is telegraphing the level 1 enemy. Actually turn it up a little bit because I really like the music on the first level. So the first level, music, Scepter, Cloak of Secrecy. So this is the only musician who contributed music who we don't know. And I just really liked the tune, so I wanted to use it.
So M has just started renting their first rental. They're a 22-year-old person in Dublin. And there's Bertie looking in. So this is our hint that even though it's supposedly based in 2025, it's not really temporal, the game. So this is a little bit of an old-fashioned house. So we're kind of nodding to Celtic era or Celtic Tiger era housing, when there was a big drive to expand lending credit, and for people who could afford it to buy it to let mortgages. As we know today, that's really contributed to having a permanent renting class. So this is our first person we're meeting in the Mull game. We'll let you read it.
So it was the kind of conversation that our friends would have about this situation they find themselves in. So Avril, we'll see it later actually, but so now we have a weapon.
This is our first. So up until this point we've been avoiding the moles. Now we're a little bit more empowered. There's a Jerry Hannon and Frank McCourt having a quick argument there.
So we wanted to, the conversations in the game, people that friends and academics and people who work on these kinds of problems, but a lot of the artwork in the first level is just artists that we like, and we just wanted to put their work in. So this is Anna Doyle, who I know from punk scene.
That's Carmen Quigley there.
So Spice Bag.
The Spice Bag eviction image,
And that's T-Shock's art. I don't know if anyone knows her, but I think her art looks really, really good in the game.
Did you just get an extra heart for picking up a 6-pack of Pratsky?
Yes, the 6-pack of Pratsky is...
So actually that's a point of contingency whether we'll bring that into the rebuild of the game, but...
James Connolly was a teetotaler, so we don't know if he would approve.
A lot of the game is based on the writings of James Connolly, and he didn't drink, neither did Patrick Pearse, so we'll come back to that. But at this stage, M is kind of coping with their living circumstances, and obviously a lot of people are drinking or whatever else as a coping mechanism.
So
are we
Avril
going too
did
fast,
this,
or is this speed okay? Can people read it? Yeah.
So Avril did this incredible work called Spoil Spores, where she collected mould from samples from people's houses. So the house that I lived in Eugene Street, Avril went to my house and took a sample of mould. And this project that she created, so she made artisanal cheeses. So it's, I'm not sure where it's being shown at the moment, but it's really well worth seeing. It's like actual cheese in displayed, and with the backstory about how they were created, or what the space is that they come from. So this is why.
Is it edible?
It's certainly not edible. No. So Avril's also doing really amazing work at the moment called Got Damp. Yeah. So she's collected loads of with a dehumidifier, loads of liquid from people's houses, damp houses, and it's being presented in a show.
So now we're meeting our landlord. So
I'm very happy with the name.
Kind of saying, Ivan, there's a problem in the house. This is kind of my own experience where there's an extreme mold problem in my house, but whenever we contact the landlord, he reminds us that there's according to the rent pressure zone increases, he can increase the rent by 9%. So it's this kind of tricky thing where your housing needs is under someone else's control, like a basic social need. You never feel like you have control in your life. So yeah, it's just, this is so informed by our lived experience.
This is Eugene Street.
This is Eugene Street. Also, obviously, it's a 16-bit game. It was like a 80s product marketed towards teenagers, so it just lets us, do it. And it's quite violent in a way, and it was quite fun doing it.
Yeah, we wanted it to be like a visceral sort of like 80s B-movie sort of game.
Exactly.
So it's like really influenced by this game called Splatterhouse.
Yes.
Which is essentially a game that was trying to recreate schlocky B-movies from the 80s.
Exactly.
So most of the game is quite easy. So we wanted to make sure that anybody who's going to come to the gallery is basically going to be able to get to the end.
Yeah.
There was a slightly more difficult version. But
it was a lot harder, and we thought it was really easy. But then one of our friends played it, and it took her a bizarre.
There was a lot of jumping and falling back there,
and she just could not. It took her 20 minutes to do a section, and we're like, okay, we need to make this really easy. So I think we've gotten to a level that anyone can play, and there's a bit of challenge.
There's a bit of challenge, sure. Maybe for the expanded version it'll be a bit more challenging, but yeah. So this is Mank on Magan.
We were going to have a quick chat with Rory.
Oh, sorry, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So Rory, so Rory's going to talk for a bit about this house, or the kind of situation that we find ourselves in, and then we're going to play through the rest because Rory's going to go to Fib in a bit for another talk.
Yeah, and I don't want to put you under too much pressure because I don't have to leave till about 1:55, but I actually just want to sit back and watch you play it. It's brilliant, I have to say, it's fantastic. And it's very funny to see yourself put in a computer game. Though the way things are at the moment, I wonder if life's a bit of a computer game and how everything has gone so surreal. But I think I just wanted to say, and we had a good chat, Hannah, about just it's fantastic to see the housing situation kind of put into a way that people can relate to. And I think, I've been engaging with different artists over the last couple of years, and it is, it's been really, I suppose, I think, because I've really struggled to find ways to communicate to people what is actually going on, what's the impact of the housing crisis, in ways that people will relate to. and that it's not just statistics and it's not just numbers, and that it's actually ways that people can go, okay, this is it, both in terms of actually sharing stories of how it's impacting on people, but also then trying to explain to people who aren't affected, this is how it's affecting people. And I think, always art is the most powerful form of communication and expression. And I think that what we're seeing here again is a really, really, visceral sort of representation of reality. And it's brilliant as well to see, because I often feel about art, I have mixed feelings about lots of art. I'm always screaming at art to be political, always. And I find that when I see art like this, it's brilliant to see. So well done to Hannah and Donal for doing it, and hopefully it'll get huge coverage and and people will engage with it. And in terms of what I just wanted to say around housing, and it's a very difficult time right now when we're seeing so many arguments around the housing crisis being caused by migrants and asylum seekers, and we're seeing what's happening in this huge level of othering and blaming, when the root cause of the housing crisis is right here. It's it's landlord greed straight up, and it's the failure of government to regulate landlords, and then the failure of government to build social housing, and that's the core of why we're in this crisis. And I've set that out, very clearly in my 2 books on it. And interestingly, I have a 3rd book that not many people know, but it goes back to 2011. And interestingly, I write about mould in that book.
Right. Is it the PPP one?
Yeah, the PPP Public-Private Partnership one, yeah. Because I worked as a community worker in Dolphin House in Dolphin's Barn, just around the corner.
Just around the corner from the first house in the first level.
Yes, Eugene Street, yeah, exactly. From 2007 until 2013, for 6 years I worked in there. And one of the biggest issues that I was working on with the tenants was mould in the flats. And we actually did some research on the mould itself, and we found that, and this has been found in other health studies as well, that mould has huge health impacts in terms of many different kind of impacts that those who are renters and renting somewhere mouldy, I almost kind of feel bad to say this out loud, but things like asthma, it can cause asthma, not just exacerbate it. It can also cause things like chronic stomach ailments, which you wouldn't think, but it does. And so mould is a pathogen. It can be deeply toxic. And I was actually looking up about, because the council used to say to the tenants all the time, just use bleach, it's your fault, you're not opening the windows. Actually their biggest thing was, we go around to their flats and we see these big fish tanks. And it's all the oxygen coming out of those fish tanks that's causing the condensation that's causing the mould problem, rather than the structural problems within it. And it's the same thing with private renters all the time, landlords blamed. And it's interesting, the power dynamic, the unequal power dynamic is very, very similar between landlords as Dublin City Council and social housing tenants, who often are made feel that they are, really not an actual tenant in a concept of European-wide tenants who have rights, but actually just literally be lucky to have somewhere. And it's similarly then with private renters. And the sort of issue with private renters that I've pointed out for many, many years is this unequal power dynamic. We go, well, why do we have this unequal power dynamic? And it is because the laws are not in place to protect tenants, ultimately from eviction, because everything goes back to that. It is too easy to evict tenants in Ireland when you look to other European countries that have really clear laws that if you're paying your rent and you're not thrashing the place, you can't be evicted. And actually, even if you are doing that, you can't be evicted either. But that's common practice across most European countries. Yet in Ireland, we're still stuck in this place of tenants being, second-class citizens and essentially treated, as Leo Varadkar said, a landlord's income. And even just last week, News Talk asked me to go on and debate the Property Owners Association, which is landlords and auctioneers.
Their website's great, sorry.
What?
Did you ever go on their website?
No, the odd time.
It's very interesting.
Oh my God, but what they're proposing seriously was to get rid of the rent pressure zones, okay? So some of you might be familiar with the rent pressure zones. They are the idea that in areas of high rent that there's some level of cap on rents, a 2% cap each year, and there's certain laws and things that landlords have to follow in terms of notices to leave and length of time and when you can increase rents. But they argued that no, there should be no rent regulation whatsoever, and that essentially there's a huge inequality in the market at the moment between landlords who are charging pre-rent control rents and then new properties that are coming on the market. And I asked her, so what's your logic? Every landlord should be able to increase their rent to the market rent. And that's what they want. And you're like, sure, then you're going to see mass evictions, people just squeezed even more. But this is the logic. And when I've been, as I say, giving out about landlords, I get constant abuse going, oh, leave the poor landlords alone. And often, they're accidental landlords, and it's someone just fell into a hole and became a landlord. It's like they just the kind of policy and public debate around landlords and tenants is like something still from feudalism in Ireland. And it is in large part, when you scale it back, it is about privilege. It is about who owns the properties, and they are generally people who have amassed wealth from the Celtic Tiger period, who bought multiple properties, and they are very influential within our government, as you say, and many of our government being landlords as well. And it does come back to regulation, and I've said this point over and over, that if the government wanted overnight, they could introduce legislation to remove no-fault evictions, which would give tenants basically lifetime security. And then all these issues, then tenants would actually go, okay, I can complain about this and I can highlight this because I'm not going to be evicted. It ultimately, for me, all goes back to that lack of basic security of tenure for renters. Because even the rent increases that go on, because we know rents are increasing way beyond even those caps. And you say, well, why are they increasing beyond the caps? And again, it's because tenants don't feel, I can say to the landlord, this is not right, why are you increasing? Because the fear is eviction. So you have this kind of, sword hanging over tenants' heads all the time, and the government could change that overnight, and that's one of the key things I think the government should do, and we're pushing for. And the other thing then is public housing. I'm conscious of my time of speaking. I think that we need to shift back to public housing, building affordable housing for a range of income earners. And we've seen that starting with the new cost rental housing, but the rents are mad in that because it's not really being done as a proper public housing model. But we do need to shift back to that public housing for all, and that is the solution. And we could do it if we wanted to, and if the political will was there. And I really think now more than ever, I was struck there is Mancon coming in around the Celtic, and you taking kind of inspiration from that Celtic past, when we're seeing another interpretation of that Celtic past from the far right going, we need to preserve Celtic Ireland and what that is, and to the exclusion of Irish people now who are of different colour and who are of different background. And it's really, really worrying. It's really worrying what's happening right now. And I think as progressives, we need to really push hard to say that there's another type of Ireland, and that we can have housing for all, and that's what we need to push for. Listen, thank you so much for having me here today. And,
that was very interesting.
Questions?
Thanks very much, Rory.
Yeah, we have a few minutes of questions as well. But just to mention, just to plug your book, this was hugely instrumental in the making of this game.
This is well worn.
It's this has been read many times, and I learned so much about it. I feel so much more knowledgeable from reading this, so I really recommend that everyone buys a copy.
I think there's a good segue to Mancon there.
Yes.
Do you want to start this one?
Yeah.
So this is actually something we talked about a lot. So the far right at the moment using Padraig Pearse quotes, or maybe Connolly at some point, but maybe that might be a bridge too far for them. But yeah, this is exactly this. And we talked about, could it be interpreted as, or like people looking at the far right and saying, oh, they're using this language. This is also using this language. Is there some kind of commonality between them? But the problem is ceding ground. We can't cede that ground to them.
We can't give them that.
Yes.
Like Connolly was the ultimate Marxist. Them taking Connolly quotes is disgusting. It's terrible quotes.
Yeah. So we've talked about that, but that's ultimately the decision was we can't let them have that.
Yeah. We have a few minutes for questions for Rory if anyone has a question.
Or we keep going with the game. Or Keep going with the game, maybe.
I want to see the game.
Okay, so we'll let you read. This is our next character.
This has been up for a while now. Let's get my nice sound design up.
Not too loud, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll turn it back down.
Yeah. This is a direct quote, more or less, from Mancon's book, Listen to the Land Speak, talking about the wren, so Dreoilín, more powerful than the eagle in Celtic mythology. So perhaps a vulture too. Again, these are all pretty much direct quotes as well.
That's my bus. So this is a specific well?
Conla's well.
Conla's well.
So we wanted to create, between each level there's the connecting world, and we wanted to make these liminal spaces. Obviously the bus stop and the well, which is a portal to the other world, are kind of portray that liminality.
Bus stop is definitely liminal space.
Definitely.
And they had a phantom disappearing bus just yesterday.
Yeah, no really,
So
brilliant.
We really enjoy the soundtrack. Our friends contributed to this. So these are all
Fuel up the feed.
from megalithic.ireland.com with permission. We pixelated them. There's a nice stone circle. So I suppose we wanted to immediately make the player feel more relaxed and kind of change the colour palette and create a sense of tranquility in the other world.
So it's this big jump from really muted, mouldy colours to really bright primary greens, blues. And this really nice song by
Ballypeel Dolmens. They're all
Feed.
They're the first missionary. So the other world is non-temporal, but it could be interpreted in many ways, but we're vaguely kind of rooting it in when missionaries were first appearing. And it's to kind of talk about like waves of colonisation and how that's created a cycle that's led us to our circumstances today.
I wanted to randomise the screen, but I didn't have time, so it's just the same screen every time.
That's from the British Museum.
Maybe it gets funnier each time.
So you have to avoid the little objects that they throw.
So now another character. So this is, you see.
So Ian Lynch from Lancome there.
I don't think he's out of place there.
Extra band here. This is a band that I was in Dublin many years ago.
That was, a niche choice.
So the Mancon and Ian conversations are sort of contrasting with the other conversations. They're a bit more mystical, a bit more, not irrational, but Cryptic, yeah. And the other conversations are more about information, more about sort of a rational analysis. And then Mancon and Ian more about, this sort of a kind of cryptic, mystical vision of the other world. And we want to say that these two things, they're not in competition. We don't have to choose between one or the other. We can very easily amalgamate.
So Mancon Magan speaks a lot about the other worlds and how, it was until recently a very strong part of life in Ireland. And like for us, it kind of represents creative flow. And M is quite resistant to the other world. So during the level, they're trying to escape from it. And we're just kind of thinking about, creative flow, imagination, imagining a better world, collective consciousness, and then kind of all the clutter and obstacles that capitalism creates and kind of can prevent us kind of accessing that essentially.
So this is actually another musical project that Ian does called One Leg, One Eye. It was very difficult to get that text aligned with the the lyrics.
We actually referenced boycotting Israel, but we just had to cut so much of it out because we had to make the conversations short to keep player attention.
That was almost the most work, cutting conversations down to work down to the bone.
Because there's so much stuff we wanted to include.
So Em is trying to return back to reality.
Ian's obviously talked about how, trad songs are a gateway to the past, so Em is still desperate to get out of the other world. Can I go back to where I was before I was here? So Ian is going to sing and hopefully transport Em back.
So we can hear the music is changing a little bit now.
There's a Google data center, by the way. So electromagnetic waves from the Google data center shouldn't exist in the threshold between realms, but we're still in the other world.
So there's a really nice version of Follow Me Up to Carlo by Ben Strong.
So this is a comic interlude in the game. It was just fun portraying Patrick as a supervillain.
So it's quite easy. I want to see all his animations because I spent a long time in them, and so he's very easy to defeat.
That's a good animation there, the green explosion.
Yeah. So then, another interlude.
Can anyone not understand Irish? Just means shut up, idiot. You're in my kingdom without permission. This is the Morgan.
So sometimes it was very difficult to cut down all this, so there's quite a lot of dialogue in it.
We cut out half of this, sorry to interrupt, and then we ended up putting it back in because we just like this conversation. Mm-hmm. And this is the time Em is being portrayed as Dreoilín Wren, but you'll see later that it's not about a superhero that's going to change the world, it's more about collectivity and
there's the friends we made along the way. That was
friends we made along the journey. But also, so Em is based on a friend of ours, Em Murphy, who's an activist, and the problem with portraying Em as a main character is they're very direct, very powerful, impressive person, but as the main character, they kind of had to be a clean slate. So one way we dealt with that was making them a lot younger, but then actually we kind of based the Morgan on the character of M, someone who's super blunt and very resourceful. So to us, it's a bit like M is kind of meeting themselves here. And originally, M, who's a dancer, was going to be rotoscoped and do a dance in this scene, but just because of time, we didn't include it. But it might be in
Possibly.
an iteration down the road. So.
Yeah, so M is really, the player who doesn't know what's going on here and is the stand-in for the player, obviously. But it was, we were a little worried about presenting them as this person who doesn't know anything, because that's not who they are.
Yeah, exactly. This is a quote originally by a French philosopher, but used a lot by Jim Larkin, and I just thought it was a beautiful quote. Okay,
so this is
Dr. Quirky's Bad Time Emporium. So here's our first hotel. That is an SCSS.
So this music is Body Cam, Michelle Doyle, who also does Rising Damp, which is also on this level.
And we're kind of in the luxury part of the city, like the upmarket hotels and that kind of thing.
So this is these hotels are encroaching on the space of the cobblestones. The cobblestone, this really important space in Dublin, that almost went through destruction very recently, but a huge community campaign, because a hotel was going to be turned into a hotel essentially. A huge community campaign, I think, contributed to that not happening. So we're suggesting that these hotels are all, crushing these spaces around Dublin.
Exactly, and we kind of jumped geographic distances by using video game platforms, so we can that's why you can jump, I suppose, between Grogan's and the Long Hall. But there's Guy News.
I think also to sort of suggest that these are like islands, there's still these islands of, something.
Yeah, we wanted
unique
this level to reflect kind of the boom and bust cycle of Irish economy. So you have your like fancy kind of plaza, and then you kind of have your more derelict area that we're going to come into now. This is our friend Sage, she's an organizer.
So this was a social centre called Shopfronts.
Did anyone go to it? Yeah.
Did lots of really cool stuff. So squatting in Ireland is currently sort of legal limbo. The UK, squatting commercial premises is still still legal. Other European countries, Netherlands has a really long history of legal squatting.
Yeah.
The UK even, you can still squat commercial buildings. So this is post-World War II, Reconstruction era law, where it was perfectly legal to actually squat commercial and residential buildings. It's recently changed in the UK. You can't squat residential buildings anymore. You can still squat commercial buildings though. And it's, it comes out of experience of destruction. So we're saying that there's nothing. Squatting should be encouraged. In fact, like there's commercial buildings that are abandoned or disused. People should be able to open them up to the community. And there are legal frameworks for that in other countries. There's no reason why we can't do that here.
Like this particular squat. So these buildings were empty for many years. So it's legal for this particular landlord owns Jervis as well. It's legal for him to property speculate, land hoard, leave buildings derelict for years that have apartments in them, loads of space. That's perfectly legal. It's legal for him to convert them into buy to let luxury flats and demolish historic buildings, because some of these buildings are historic. But it's illegal to use vacant space and reclaim it. What happened with Shopfronts is it became a gym, it became a workshop, a cafe, a free shop. It generated so much community and art, and it's just really good for people's mental health. Never mind the 20 people that were living in the apartments there during a housing crisis as well. But I want to quickly mention part of this big complex was the old Des Kelly warehouse on the North Circular Road. My granny just turned 100. That was her local cinema growing up. That throughout history has been a cinema, it's been an ice rink, it's been a theatre.
The Ramones played there.
The Ramones played there. Then a big art show was there as well. It's a beautiful building. It's absolutely, and it's stunning. Like it needs a clean up, obviously, but it's in great condition and it's going to be demolished. But this just happens in our city. Like you walk through a new street and it's just more CGI flats. Like I don't think that's what the community wants, and it's scary. Like it's out of our control, but we want to. Well, we'll get to that. So now we're going to meet the guards who are they're not on the side of the tenants, they're facilitating the eviction. You'll notice that the lights are now red in the level as well.
So something I realised the other day, we were talking about those kind of brochures for new apartments. This where like it's a photograph of the space and then a CGI like graphic there, and sometimes they're a little bit skewed. The angle is a bit wrong, and it seems like weird. So we put these in and realised that this is what these look like too.
Yeah.
So this is all Fibsborough.
There we go. Forgot about that crack. There's a Des Kelly cinema we mentioned there. These are all just based on photos we took, and we wanted to. This game is a collage. Like obviously, it's
So this is just
photos and it's pixelated objects.
This is the doors of a practice space that I run, or I run with a collective karate club in Fibsborough, and this is just beside those. That's Colin Wright from Running Right there.
This is kind of a segue here, like a little bit of a relaxing time. So friend Ashling or singing. So we researched 317 James Connolly texts, and then we made them into two conversations in the game.
That was a hard one.
That was a hard one, and it took 3 months and a lot of stress, but it was also a huge learning curve as well. And it's so crazy that these texts were written like 100 years ago. Everything's the same, apart from like new technology and AI and surveillance and whatever. It's all still applicable.
Yeah.
It's all just power hierarchies, and it's all just wealth hoarding.
It's the same problem and it's the same solution.
He even talks about the media kind of inflaming everyone and distracting everyone. It's unbelievably relevant to now.
Maybe keep going, because this is the long one actually.
So we have 2 long conversations that might be cut down in future.
And this is based on the Jim Fitzpatrick image, who
He kindly let us use it.
Yeah. A lot of the work was actually contacting artists and the interviews and the research, obviously. Yeah.
Every single person we contacted was so generous. Not one person. It was amazing, actually.
Yeah. So we had to kind of split up the info dumps with kind of some funny bits.
Exactly. This is talking about the land league that had an arm in the British Parliament, but then the real work was kind of done on the grounds, like rural Irish tenants sneaking out at night to wreck their landlords' fields, and mass protests and boycotting and rent strikes and all the rest. Do Do you want to have a go?
Yeah, sure.
Here's Rory then.
So we kind of wanted to come full circle. So you meet Rory in the clouds at the beginning, and this is the beginning of the end.
And once again, we're kind of in a liminal cloudy space as well, so it's kind of full circle.
Yeah.
And,
so we're connecting up as well. These, so you know, you will be able to later on. These are international investment funds and vulture funds, connecting this up with landlordism in general.
Exactly.
From the beginning.
So that's just mentioning NAMA.
This is also NAMACO, obviously.
Yeah, and we just kind of want to really hammer home that the housing crisis didn't just happen. It's because of policy decisions, laws, very specific, legal kind of changes. It wasn't something organic.
So this is music, Ben Strong again. This is exactly what you said.
So we decided to name the vultures here. Kind of name and shame, rather than change the names or vaguely reference them. We just wanted to be specific. Here's the guards again. Maybe go left thing. So we kind of, thinking about vulture funds, if you ever look them up on tax websites, sometimes there's only a few directors and they own, or they've stakes in hundreds of other companies. They've share an address with hundreds of other companies in a PO box in Marion Square. They have accounts in the Cayman Islands. They're really mysterious. So we wanted to make them into these kind of like cartoon items that are very defeatable, to kind of just implant in the player's head, thinking that we can overcome this force. This is also a quote from I feel bad for you people, you can't possibly defeat me. So IRA's rate Ireland's biggest landlord. There was an Irish Times article, or Irish Independent, that just said, I feel bad for the Irish people, was a quote.
Quote from the director, I think. That's it, dead. Just can't defeat them.
Yeah, you lost. This is true as well. So the Irish Citizen Army didn't have rifles, they drilled with hurls, and some of them didn't even have shoes.
So you meet all your friends again.
So you have to drive a vulture into your allies. You can't defeat the enemy unless obviously without the help of your friends. This is the ending of Shinobi 3, but we repurposed it for our game because we just loved it so much.
It's an amalgamation of Shinobi 3 and Terminator.
Yeah.
There it is.
So we have about 8 minutes.
I'll leave the credits
Q&As.
running, and yeah, if you have any questions you would like to ask about the process of making a game or
Anything at all.
anything at all.
I mean, just to say it's amazing. Yeah.
We thought of it a year ago, and within 2 weeks of us coming up with the idea, we were chatting about it on the phone. We were like, can you imagine if we did that? But within 2 weeks, we had the whole storyline done. We kept meeting in the back page and getting pints and pizzas every few days. So we were like, okay, so then we kill St. Patrick, and then the vultures
Instrumental
and
for this
African
project.
vulture, and then this and then that. And we had a storyline so quickly. And then, I mean, the research phase was just huge. But yeah, it just came very naturally, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and also it's kind of like, I see it as like a mythology of our own lived experience. Like we created a story to try and communicate like how we feel, because they're really serious topics, and it's really hard to read about the housing crisis and hear about it and you feel really shit and you get depressed. So we wanted to like package it in a really fun way so you could learn without being dragged down.
Yeah, like, so there's that kind of a sort of constant battle between hitting the player over the head with all this information and then trying to communicate it in a way that is fun and engaging, or like that doesn't make you or maybe making you angry is okay, but doesn't make you depressed, you know.
Exactly.
Can I make this compulsory for my students to do in the lectures? Like,
I mean, that would
Play through the game.
Yeah, to play the game.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, I'll get me some citations.
Learn about it.
we want to launch it online eventually, but it'll have to be kind of redone in a different engine.
Yeah.
Potentially.
So this is made in Unreal Engine, and it's actually running on a Steam Deck back here.
Not on the Mega Drive, believe it or not.
So yeah, we do want to put it online, but we have to decide whether that's going to be like browser based. So I could port it all into Godot. That would take a very long time, but we'll look into that over the summer.
Yeah.
And is the plan for it to be here for a little while?
So it's going to be here for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, till the 25th of May.
So the gallery's open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 12 to 6. So you can come and play it whenever you want.
And there's a Gmail in case there's any any issues or bugs. We're just rebuilding it every few days, like constantly updating it and
There's
changing.
another function needs to be put in next week. And,
There's the Land League ad I keep seeing, which is hilarious. It's a placeholder we just didn't have time to change. So we just did it in MS Paint, just wrote like.
So a lot of it was made in essentially free software. So all the artwork was made in GIMP, which is a free image editor, free open source image editor. We started with Godot, this game engine that is free, open source, community built. It was taking me a little bit too long. So I had done a project in Unreal Engine before, so I knew a bit about it. So Godot was just proving to be a bit too difficult. I would have liked to make in Godot because it's free, open source, community built. Reaper, all the audio, music was created by friends.
Yes. So much of it is just open source.
Did you hack any existing games?
No.
You built it all from the ground up?
Yeah, sure.
There's one or two assets in there. I can barely remember. Like we had some Shinobi grass that we changed.
So the couple of placeholders, we took like some graphics from other games that to just get things started, and then we had to kind of modify them because we liked them too much. We had to sort of keep them in there. But
Rory's going to head to Fizz Fest.
Oh yeah.
Thanks a million, Rory.
worries. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
so good to have you.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
nice to be here. Thanks
Cool.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. I think thanks for
Yeah.
coming. This has
Thanks
been
a
really
million.
nice. And